Every morning, he faced the mirror, not to admire himself, but to make sure he still existed. The suit fit perfectly, the smile was flawless. To everyone else, he looked confident, magnetic even. But when the lights dimmed and the applause faded, the silence became unbearable. Behind that practiced charm lived a quiet panic. What if I'm nothing when no one is watching? He built his worth from admiration, stitched his identity together with every compliment, and mistook attention for love. From the outside, it looked like vanity. From the inside, it was survival. This is the paradox of the narcissist, a person adored for their reflection, but terrified of what disappears when it's gone. Because the narcissist doesn't love their reflection, they fear what disappears when it's gone. We often mistake narcissism for vanity, as if it's simply loving yourself too much. But real narcissism isn't love at all. It's hunger. A hunger that began long before the mirror. A hunger to be seen, to be affirmed, to finally feel real. For the narcissist, admiration is not a luxury, it's oxygen. They don't seek attention because they think they're better than everyone else. They seek it because without it, they start to disappear. Psychology describes it as a pattern of grandiosity, entitlement, and lack of empathy. But beneath those clinical words lies something far more human: fear. The fear of being ordinary, the fear of being unseen, the fear of being unworthy. So they construct a world that constantly reflects them back to themselves. Every compliment is a breath, every glance, a small reassurance that they still exist. And when that attention fades, they panic, because what they mistake for confidence is actually dependency. This is the paradox of narcissism. The louder the performance of superiority, the deeper the well of insecurity beneath it. They appear full of self-love, but it's a self they can never truly reach. A self built from approval, not acceptance. It's not adoration of the self, it's addiction to the reflection. And like any addiction, it demands more and more to feel the same. So they keep chasing the next admirer, the next stage, the next mirror. But reflections can only echo what's shown to them. They never touch the truth. Because the narcissist isn't chasing reality. They're chasing the reflection, a fragile image that keeps them from facing the emptiness behind it. No one is born a narcissist. The mask is not inherited, it's assembled, piece by piece, from childhood moments that taught a dangerous lesson. Love must be earned. For some, it starts with endless praise. You're extraordinary. You're special. You can do anything. At first, it feels like love, warm, affirming, intoxicating. But over time, those words become a kind of trap. They teach the child that love appears only when they shine, that their value lives in performance, not presence. Each compliment becomes a small brick in the wall, between who they are and who they have to be. For others, the path is colder. They grow up in silence, unseen, ignored, or noticed only when they accomplish something remarkable. Their parents may not say you're special, but the message is the same: be impressive or be invisible. And so they begin to chase worth through achievement, believing that if they just do enough, they'll finally be loved in a way that feels safe. Two childhoods, one flooded with admiration, the other starved of it. But both send the same signal: love is conditional. It can be given, but it can also be withdrawn. So the child learns to build a version of themselves that will always earn it back. That version becomes their armor, polished, confident, untouchable. But behind it lives a quiet terror. If the mask slips, I'll lose everything. This is how the ego becomes both savior and captor. A fragile construction built not from authenticity, but survival. And by the time they grow up, they no longer know where the performance ends and the person begins. They don't just wear the mask, they've forgotten there was ever a face beneath it. Adulthood turns the childhood lesson into a lifestyle. The mask that once earned love now becomes the only way to survive. From the outside, it looks effortless. They move through rooms like they own the air, charming, articulate, magnetic. They know exactly when to laugh, when to flatter, when to take control. It's a performance polished by years of rehearsal. But behind the charisma lives constant panic, a silent fear of slipping out of character. It's like living in a glass house. Everyone can see in, and they know it. So they paint the walls with illusions. Success, confidence, beauty, brilliance, anything to distract from the cracks forming beneath the surface. Every word, every gesture, every glance becomes part of the act. A single wrong expression could expose the emptiness they've spent their lives hiding. This endless self-monitoring, the constant scanning of who's watching, who's approving, who's drifting away, creates an exhausting inner world. Psychologists call it ego fatigue, when the effort of maintaining the false self drains every ounce of peace. Each compliment lands like a spark that fades too fast. Each success gives a brief high before sinking into panic again. Because the applause feeds the mask, not the person. They wake up every day, needing to prove what they already fear isn't real. And the more they achieve, the more fragile it feels. From the outside, they seem invincible. Inside, they're shattering in slow motion. Trapped in a house made of glass and expectations, desperate to keep the colors bright. Because the moment they fade, the truth might show through. There comes a point when even the mask begins to crack under its own weight. No amount of applause seems to fill the silence it leaves behind. The compliments that once felt electric now fade within seconds, leaving only the same dull ache, the same quiet question. Why do I still feel empty? This is the paradox at the heart of the narcissist's life. The more admiration they collect, the less it satisfies. Each success becomes another reminder that the feeling never lasts. It's like trying to quench thirst with salt water. The more they drink, the more desperate they become. And nowhere is this more visible than in their relationships. At first, they are magnetic, intoxicating. They make others feel chosen, special, seen. But soon, that warmth turns cold. The attention they once offered becomes demand. The affection becomes control. Loving them starts to feel like loving a mirage. You reach out for connection, and your hand closes around air. Psychologists call this the narcissistic wound, the deep hidden belief that they are unworthy of love, without the performance. It is the wound they spend a lifetime trying to hide, and the one they unconsciously ask others to heal. But no amount of love can fill a void carved by fear. Being close to them is like standing beside a black hole. No matter how much light, how much affection, how much patience you pour in, it never feels enough. This is not because they are monsters. It's because they are survivors of emotional starvation. They learned long ago that to be loved, they had to be more, smarter, stronger, shinier, safer. And now they can't stop performing, even when it costs them the very intimacy they crave. The tragedy is not that they can't love. It's that love terrifies them. To truly be loved would mean taking off the mask, and beneath it lies a child still trembling at the thought that without their armor, they might disappear. But narcissism doesn't exist in isolation. It's not only a personality, it's a reflection of the time we live in. We've built a culture where performance has replaced presence, where attention has become a kind of currency. The more visible you are, the more you seem to matter. And so we polish, we filter, we perform, not just online, but in everyday life. Think about it. How many times have you edited your words before posting them? How many times have you smiled through exhaustion just to seem composed? How many times have you crafted a version of yourself that would be easier for the world to love? We live in an age that rewards visibility over authenticity. The loudest voices get the stage. The most polished stories get the spotlight. And somewhere along the way, truth becomes secondary to aesthetics. We learn to treat our identities like brands, to curate our lives for consumption rather than connection. It's easy to point at the narcissist and say, that's them. But isn't it also us, endlessly scrolling, comparing, perfecting, measuring our worth in likes, followers, and fleeting approval? Maybe the narcissist is not an outlier, but an amplified reflection of a society addicted to attention. Because in the end, we all crave to be seen. We all fear being forgotten. We all wear masks, some shinier, some quieter, to survive in a world that mistakes applause for affection. The truth is, we're not outside the story. We're inside it. Every reflection we judge is a fragment of our own. Eventually, every mask begins to crack. The charm stops working, the applause grows quieter, and the reflection in the mirror no longer feels convincing. Sometimes it happens slowly, the steady erosion of admiration until the silence becomes unbearable. Other times it happens all at once. A breakup, a loss, a collapse so deep, it forces them to face what they've spent a lifetime avoiding. This is the breaking point, the moment when the pain of the mask finally outweighs the fear of being seen without it. The fall feels brutal at first. Without the constant validation, they feel exposed, even hollow. But this is also where healing begins. Because beneath the ruin of performance, something soft is still waiting, the self they abandoned to survive. Therapy often begins here, in that raw confusion. The work is not to destroy the ego, but to understand it, to see it as protection that once made sense. Through self-reflection and empathy training, they start to look inward without judgment, to recognize the wound instead of hiding it, to slowly replace self-criticism with curiosity. At first it feels unbearable. They must sit with the silence they once drowned in noise. They must look at their reflection and resist the urge to perfect it. But as compassion grows, the edges of the ego begin to soften. For the first time, they learn that love doesn't have to be earned, that connection isn't a transaction. Growth doesn't mean destroying the ego, it means softening it, letting the self be human again. It's not about becoming less confident, but more authentic. Not about losing power, but finding peace. Through loss, through therapy, through the quiet grace of being seen by someone who doesn't demand performance. They begin to realize something extraordinary. They were never loved for their perfection, they were loved in spite of it. And that realization, fragile and profound, becomes the start of freedom. The moment they stop chasing admiration and begin seeking understanding, the narcissist begins to heal, not by becoming someone new, but by remembering who they were before the mask. And so we return to the mirror. The same mirror that once reflected vanity now holds something softer, something real. No more posing, no more performance. Just a face, tired, imperfect, alive. For the narcissist and for all of us, this is the quiet revolution. To stand before our own reflection and not look away. To see ourselves not as the world demands, but as we are. Flawed, frightened, unfinished, yet still worthy. Because beneath every mask, no matter how convincing, lives the same longing. To be loved without conditions. To be known without performing. We build our identities like armor, hoping they'll keep us safe. But in truth, they only keep us separate. We hide so we won't be rejected. But in doing so, we reject ourselves first. You were never unlovable, just unseen. And now, you can finally look in the mirror, without flinching. Maybe that's where healing begins. Not in becoming perfect, but in allowing yourself to be human. If this story touched something in you, stay with us. Because healing starts with understanding. And understanding begins the moment we stop looking for perfection and start recognizing ourselves behind the mask, beneath the reflection, still here,